What's the story, everyone? Welcome back to GA Fan TV. I hope the form is good. I hope the form is well. It's the All-Ireland Hurling Championship review show. We're going to be breaking down the weekend's games, and certainly we have a lot to talk about. I mean, Wexford beating Kilkenny, first of all. How on earth did that happen? I genuinely don't know. Dublin hit the bed once again against Galway, against a big team. We were 10 points up at halftime, 12 points up at the start of the second half, and yet we still somehow managed to not win the game. Hawkeye, I mean, they absolutely hit the bed as well. Not that it would have mattered anyway. And what is it with Hawkeye and Galway, by the way? They always seem to be somewhat connected, which is absolutely bizarre. And after all Westmeath's great work versus Wexford, they still got relegated with that defeat to Antrim. I mean, you had one job, Kilkenny: save the championship, save the world, relegate Wexford, put them out of their misery. But in fairness, yeah, some result there for Wexford. In Munster, I mean, it was no shortage of drama there. Tipperary, you had one job: get to a Munster final. You get to a Munster final, you're not even playing Limerick. You're playing a Waterford team that just hasn't been at it at all year. I mean, they were playing two goalkeepers on the pitch, for Christ's sake. They were playing a goalkeeper as a sweeper. Absolute madness from Davy Fitz. But in fairness, it worked to an absolute T. Waterford beat Tipperary. Get revenge on Liam Cahill. How do those grapes taste, Liam Cahill? Because, oh my goodness me, he was absolutely devastated after the game, wasn't he? Because that was a very tough one to take. And Limerick, they went out and beat Cork. And, I mean, Limerick have been poor enough throughout the entirety of the Munster Championship, and yet they still managed to end up in a Munster final. In fairness, it does show the amount of resolve that this Limerick side have, and the fact that they were able to come through the stern test that is Cork and get to a Munster final. And speaking of Cork, not getting out of the Munster round robin, huge disappointment for them. A weird one for Cork, because like the Cork fans were quite happy and quite optimistic, having obviously lost the game, and you could understand why. But for Cork, like the history of that county not to be getting out of the Munster Championship, it probably does show how competitive the Munster Championship is. In fairness, 2 1-point losses, a draw and a win. Like, they finished on a positive score difference, and Tipperary, who finished above them, actually finished on a negative score difference. A bit of a bizarre Munster Championship, but undoubtedly you would say Pat Ryan's Cork are moving in the right direction. Anyways, it's the Hurling Review Show. It's going to be just myself today because my internet is about as bad as Wexford at the minute.
Sometimes it may be good, sometimes it may be shit.
So let's start proceedings off then by looking at the Wexford and Kilkenny game, having a look at the games in the Leinster Championship, because this match was absolutely mental. I mean, watching the highlights on the Sunday game, 9 goals, penalties, a huge amount of drama. Kilkenny looked like at one point that they were going to be far too strong for Wexford. They hit the opening 2 goals. Wexford looked like they didn't have an answer at all. They came roaring back into it with a penalty from Lee Chin. Kevin Foley gets a goal straight after that. And you're thinking, like, Wexford all of a sudden are on it here. The fans are up for it. They believe. But in fairness to Kilkenny, like, Kilkenny had absolutely nothing to play for in this game. Like, they were already through to a Leinster final. Even if they lost this game and Dublin had a bet Galway, they still would have progressed on score difference. So it didn't even make a difference for Kilkenny this match whatsoever. And obviously they changed their team a little bit. I mean, Tom Phelan played, scored 1-4. They still had Owen Cody and TJ Reid in the side. Adrian Mullen might have picked up a big injury, and that could actually be a huge loss from a Kilkenny perspective. But this was just an absolutely mental game. I mean, at one stage, you were looking at it and thinking, I feel like either side just keep going for goals. They kept going for goals over and over. It was back and forth, dilly-dang, up from one end to the other. I mean, if this had been a boxing match, it would have been a fight for the ages. Absolutely extraordinary stuff here. And you know what the most mental thing about this match? It wasn't even on TV. I mean, goodness me, the GEA, like, yeah. I mean, like, it's just absolutely mental, isn't it? How are we still having these classic matches not on the TV? I felt like we showed every other game than this one. In fairness, look, there was the Dublin Roscommon game that was on GEA Go. You had Limerick versus Cork, which is on RTE. And I think Waterford Tipperary was also on GAA Go. But a game like this, with so much meaning, like Wexford going down, if they had lost this game, you want to get that on TV. You want the cameras to zoom in on Lee Chin's face, on Kevin Foley as they get relegated. But no, the GAA decided, nah, we'll just leave this one. We'll let this one go. And yes, obviously, you had a lot of games on at the same time. But why wasn't this game on at 2 o'clock? The same time as Dublin Galway, and the same time as, obviously Antrim Westmeath was on at 4 o'clock. But why weren't those games at 2 o'clock? Wexford, because no one really cared about the Dublin Galway game. Even Dublin fans weren't even arsed with it. So yeah, I'd imagine it was a little bit frustrating from a Wexford point of view, not getting that game on TV. But look, fair play to Wexford. Like, they showed some amount of bottle to come through and win that game. You've seen the kids jumping on the pitch at full time. Like, what a moment for Wexford. And it's just absolutely mental when you look at Wexford, because they beat Kilkenny, obviously, this year. They beat Kilkenny in Nolan Park last year. In 2021, they took Kilkenny to extra time in the Leinster semi-final. Kilkenny still beat them, but that was by far Kilkenny's toughest test in Leinster that season. You think back to 2019, Wexford and Kilkenny drew in the round robin, and in the Leinster final, Wexford beat them. So Wexford seemed to have this mad sort of form against Kilkenny, which sort of makes no sense, because Kilkenny are the best team in the province, in my opinion, and they have a habit of beating pretty much everyone else. I mean, they walk the floor with Dublin. Westmeath and Antrim are never a test. If Laois are there, they're never a test. Galway kind of give Kilkenny the odd, roughing up here and there, but Kilkenny generally seem to have the better of them in Leinster finals. And when you look at Wexford's form outside of playing Kilkenny, Dublin tend to beat them, Galway tend to beat them, Westmeath are beating them now as well. But yet, when they play Kilkenny, it's like almost their bodies like completely swap. And it's like the Kilkenny team turn into Wexford, and the Wexford team turn into Kilkenny, and probably the prime Kilkenny from the mid-2000s. It's just absolutely mental what we're seeing, to be honest with you. And what's mad is that you beat Kilkenny in the championship, and that's it. Obviously because of how bad Wexford's season has been, losing to Westmeath. Like that, like they don't even get to go on from here, which is mad. They beat Kilkenny last year, and it wasn't even enough to get into a Leinster final. It just must be mental supporting Wexford, to be honest with you. But one thing we can say for certain, they do have good hurlers. They do have good players. I think Dara Egan's bought himself another year on the job. Kilkenny won't really care too much about this defeat. Probably still go into the Leinster Championship as favourites anyway. But yeah, what a bizarre game this was. And obviously the Westmeath Antrim game was taking place at the same time. Obviously, it was pretty much do or die for either side. Whoever got bet was possibly going to be relegated. Obviously, both of them were very much relying on Kilkenny to do the business versus Wexford, because it would have saved Westmeath, who obviously lost the game 424 to 119. You feel sorry for Westmeath, don't you? Like, I mean, to get that win versus Wexford, like, you sort of look at it now and you think, like, it's just mad, because they drew at Wexford last season as well. Westmeath have put in some good performances against some top teams in the last couple of seasons. It doesn't feel like a fluke. It feels like they are good enough for the Leinster Championship, but then at the same time, they're still getting relegated. So there's kind of nothing really you can do about it. I mean, they'll go into the John McDonough next year, probably bounce straight back up, and then get relegated again. As Don Logue said on the Sunday game last night, it's very hard to know what the actual solution is for the likes of Westmeath. You feel like it doesn't do them any good, because you look at Laois. Laois were very competitive in Leinster for a while, and then ended up getting and look at them this year in the John McDonough. They've done absolutely next to nothing. So it's very tough, to be honest with you, on Westmeath. But look, you have to give credit to Antrim. Antrim were, a possible yo-yo team for a while there. Conal Cunning with a goal and 9 points. James McNaughton getting a goal as well. Couple of late goals for Antrim was enough for them to pull away from Westmeath. And in fairness to Antrim, when you look at the body of work that they've done this season, the draw against Dublin, probably should have beat Wexford as well. Let's not forget, they were narrowly beaten in that game when they played Wexford. Antrim have been more competitive with some of the bigger sides of Kilkenny and Galway. To a certain extent, they still got bet by like 10, 15 points, but it wasn't as bad as what Westmeath were getting beaten. So yeah, it's one of them that it's harsh on Westmeath. It's disappointing to see them go down. But at the same time, like, what do you do? I know some people were saying they should play a relegation playoff against Waterford. Would they beat Waterford? Like, Waterford are a mess at the best of times, but I don't see that happening, to be honest with you. So, like, it's just, it is one of them where it's quite harsh, to be honest with you, on the likes of Westmeath and everything else. But then again, what is the solution? I don't know. I think probably just up to Westmeath to try and improve, get better. If they had a won against Antrim, which they're more than capable of doing, they would have stayed up. So harsh on Westmeath. Let's not forget they've been missing a lot of big players this year as well. Like no Killian Doyle, no Angus Clark as well. So it's been a difficult one for Westmeath, but they'll go into the Joe McDonagh with their heads held high, and they'll certainly go in as the favourites, in my opinion, next year. And then we had Dublin versus Galway. As I said at the top of the show there, Dublin, I mean, yeah, like there's positives to take from this from a Dublin perspective, but it's also just another one of those games in Dublin hurling that we seem to always get. We seem to always put up a good performance against Galway, against Kilkenny, in particular against Galway. Like actually in the last 3 seasons, this is the mad thing about the Leinster Championship. Certain teams seem to have certain sort of purple patches against certain sides. Wexford seem to have a habit of beating Kilkenny. Westmeath seem to have a habit of doing great against Wexford. And Dublin seem to always do well against Galway. Like we drew with them obviously in Croke Park. We beat them in Croke Park 2 seasons ago. You think the 2019 in Parnell Park, we beat them as well. I mean, I don't know what happens to Galway when they travel over to this side of the country. I mean, as they're crossing over from the west to Dublin, I don't know if they're just getting completely, bamboozled by the capital. It's just absolute madness when you look at it. And like Galway just did not get going at all. I don't know if they were out on the beer the night before or what was going on, but they were giving the ball away left, right and centre. Dublin's first 2 goals weren't even the best of goals. Caught completely asleep. I think he was watching himself on the big screen as that ball came in. And then the second goal, I mean, I think Galway just completely lost train of what goal they were attacking. Danny Sutcliffe runs in and puts it in the back of the net. Lovely finish from him. And we were 10 points up at halftime, 12 points up at the start of the second. And we literally said, like, Dublin will throw this game away. Like, we won't win this because this is what we do. This is what happens with Dublin down the years in hurling. Like, we're good at chasing the game, but when we have a lead, we sort of just tend to get the jitters and the butterflies and sort of throw it away. Hawkeye, I don't know what happened here. I mean, you think about it. This game finished a draw. If that was a point, in the end, it didn't matter with Wexford beating Kilkenny. We needed Kilkenny to win just by the fact that it would have went down to head-to-head with ourselves in Galway as opposed to score difference. A little bit confusing, but all 3 teams would have finished on 7, so it would have went to score difference instead, whereas it would have been Dublin and Galway on 7. We would have jumped above them in the head-to-head had we have beat them. So it wouldn't have made a difference in the end with Wexford beating Kilkenny. But Hawkeye, like, how on earth do you keep... Like, what is going on here? Like, I don't know... Like, Hawkeye data unavailable. I mean, what is going on here? Like, did you just... Like, is Hawkeye like a mobile phone where you just forget to top it up or something? Like, can you not just go down to Spar, go down to the local shop, put in 20 quid and then it will work for a game? I don't know how it works. Thankfully enough, they got it working later on. Whoever's in charge of the Hawkeye, like, that needs an update. Do you know what I mean? Go in there, go into your settings, system update, reset, start again. Because to be honest with you, the last thing we need is an All-Ireland final, a big provincial final being decided by something like that. Thankfully enough, it didn't matter because Dublin threw the game away anyway, and Wexford went and done the unbelievable and beat Kilkenny. So it didn't matter anyway. Hawkeye, like, what is going on here? Madness. I mean, who said the Hawkeye favours Dublin and Croke Park favours Dublin? Yeah, absolute madness. But the game did finish a draw anyway, 222 to 125. And yeah, from a Dublin perspective, we go into, I think we play Carlow next. I think it might be in the preliminary qualifier matches or whatever, because Carlow obviously won the Joe McDonagh, which we'll get onto a little bit later. Nice trip down to Netwatch Cullen Park for the Dubs. I would fancy us to beat Carlow, but then we'll play the losers of the Munster final, like Clare or Limerick. I mean, they'll absolutely demolish us and take us to our nearest cleaner. So yeah, that's going to be the end of that, unfortunately. With Dublin, you never quite know. Like, we might throw in a good performance, but ultimately we won't have enough to win either of those 2 games. I kind of want us to play Limerick just for the crack. Like, I think going to Croke Park and watching us against Limerick would be fun for about 5 minutes until Cian Lynch makes our defence dizzy. But yeah, I think Dublin will beat Carlow. You never know with Dublin. We lost to Laois a couple of years ago, but I think we will beat Dublin. And the Leinster final, we'll preview that when it comes around. But it's a big one for Galway, and it's a big one for Henry, in fairness. Moving on to the Munster Championship then, as we were saying, Limerick got the better of Cork, 325 to 130. Early on in the first half, Cork were looking very strong. Patrick Horgan was shooting the lights out. Dara Fitzgibbon was having a great game. Seamus Harnedy as well. And you were thinking, Limerick are in trouble. There was a moment in the championship where Limerick were gone. And even if this game finished as a draw, Limerick would have been gone. I mean, absolute madness. Like, Limerick, like, it was almost all or nothing. Like, the fact they've gone into a Munster final is bizarre, because at one moment they were gone. They were finished, and you thought, like, this was it for them. They were knocked out. But in fairness to Limerick, they showed their resolve. Cian Lynch didn't start. You were hearing rumours that he was dropped, but I think it was later confirmed that maybe he picked up a knock during training during the week or something like that. But in fairness, they stood up. And I said during the week, Grode Hegarty was going to be player of the week. Was he player of the week? Probably not. But he stood up massively. 3 points. He was setting up scores around them. He had a phenomenal performance. Jeremy Burns with 1-4, getting that goal from the penalty. Was it a penalty? There were some questions around it. You could see Galland was being pulled back. I think it was a penalty in fairness. Some would say he was maybe looking for it, but I think it was a penalty. Cathal O'Neill had some good moments and bad moments in the game. He lost possession a couple of times, but he did get himself a goal, which was absolutely huge. And Limerick dug deep. They dug deep, got the victory, and showed that bottle and metal of All-Ireland champions. And as for Cork, like, it's disappointment for them because, like, to come as close to beating Limerick as they would have, like, I think if they had won this game, they would have been in the Munster final themselves. So, like, it's a harsh one for Cork. It's a tough one for them to take. They are making progress under Pat Ryan, under Kieran Kingston at times. There were times where Cork would just roll over and get absolutely pummeled, but this isn't happening at the minute. Like, under Pat Ryan, Cork seem to have a bit of bottle about them. When they go behind, they don't throw the towel in, they battle back. The only disappointment from a Cork perspective would be Patrick Horgan is getting on a bit. Shamey Harnedy is getting on a bit. Shane Kingston is getting on a bit. Like, these lads are getting older. They do have young players coming through. Alan Connolly, these lads, Jack O'Connor, like, look like good players. Cork's underage is quite strong at the moment as well. So it's not all lost, but you do look at it and think it's getting now or never for the likes of Horgan and these lads. And the worry for Cork, like this year, has been there was times against Tipperary, Clare, and even Limerick where those sides were there for the taking and Cork were in front. And Cork, you know, if they had to they just lacked that killer instinct to put them teams away when they had a chance. Now, in fairness, Clare, Limerick, two very, very good teams. And these teams on the day are more than capable of rallying and turning it around. But that's something for Cork to work on. But ultimately, it's tough on Cork, to be honest with you. Like, it's weird. Like, I think Cork are better than Dublin, probably better than Galway as well. But, you know, they're obviously knocked out. And that's just the way the Munster Championship is, unfortunately. And as we were saying, the other game in Munster finished Tipperary 21 points, Waterford 124. And wow, Waterford, you know, saved their best performance for when it literally did not matter in the slightest. But Davy, he's plenty of bad blood with Waterford down the years. Liam Cahill has plenty of history with Waterford, as we very well know. So there was a bit of animosity maybe between both sets of players and management and everything else. And fair play to Waterford. They stood up. I mean, the decision to play Billy Nolan in at sweeper was absolutely mental. Another crazy Davy decision, but in fairness, it worked. You know, it did work. And is that something we'll see Waterford do quite regularly next season? And could that be a new thing in hurling? I mean, that would just be mental. 2 goalkeepers on the pitch at one time. But in fairness to Waterford, it was a great performance. Dessie Hutchinson, when you play him closer to goal, like, that's what he does. Like, he's the type of man that you want him running off the shoulder. You want him running off the last line of defence. You want him sort of weaving in and out, creating goal chances, because that's what he is best at, in my opinion. He just creates chaos around them. And we've seen that. He scored 1-4. And even the goal, like, you could argue it was a foul maybe in the build-up on Niall O'Mara, I think it was. But at the same time, he dispossesses the opposition player and puts the ball in the back of the net. And that's what Dessie Hutchinson is best at times, in my opinion. And as for Tipperary, like, just a massive setback, in my opinion, for Tip. Like, it's a result that could knock the confidence out of them. Like, they'll obviously play the runners-up in the Leinster final because they will beat Offaly, in my opinion, in the sort of preliminary round game. But I think Tipperary, like, yeah, like, the fact they've missed out on a Munster final, the fact it wouldn't have been against Limerick as well, like, it just would have been a huge occasion for Tip and Clare. I think it's a massive opportunity missed for Tipperary, in my opinion, after the work that they've done this season to lose this game. Whether it was complacency, whether they just didn't switch on, you have to give a lot of credit to Waterford, who got their tactics spot on, in fairness. But yeah, like, missing Jason Ford, in fairness, it was obviously a big one. They'd no Jake Morris for this game as well, so obviously that was a bit of a blow. So yeah, tough one to take for Tipperary. For Waterford, look, that will give Davy a bit of confidence maybe going into next year. I've seen him obviously on the post-match press conference where he was saying that, I think he said, like, managers who don't have half the hassle that he has had have won nothing. And, you know, it's just mad when you look at Davy Fitz. I feel like if you just stuck a microphone to Davy Fitz for the full day, he'd come up with some absolute madness. Like, I'm a big Davy fan, but it was all like, he reminds me a bit of Jose Mourinho at times in soccer. Like, you don't know what he's going to say next. He's box office entertainment. And whether that was a dig at Brian Lohan or a dig at Liam Cahill, I really don't know what it was, to be honest with you. But just a little bit mad for Davy Fitz. Swing the punches on the way out. But look, Waterford next season, they get that win under their belts. Maybe next season they might be a little bit better and a bit of a threat, but Munster is so competitive, so that's why it's just going to be so tough for them, in fairness. Looking at the Joe McDonagh Cup final, this was a mental game as well. It went Carlow's way after extra time by a scoreline of 229 to 131. A bit of a setback for Offaly. Like, you think about Offaly and the history that they have, and obviously the underage success that they've had in the last couple of seasons. Well, I suppose not. They haven't won anything major. Like, they lost the All-Ireland minor final. They're obviously in an All-Ireland under-20 semi-final this weekend as well. So, like, Offaly, like, there's good underage brewing at the minute, but this will be a setback. It's another season outside of the Leinster Championship, and you know, they done so much right for so long in the Joe McDonagh. Won their opening 4 games, lost to Carlow on the final day. You were thinking maybe that was just because Offaly were preparing for the Joe McDonagh final, which would have been against Carlow. But in fairness to Carlow, look, what a season they had. I mean, I did not expect them to win this Joe McDonagh Cup, to be honest with you. Like, I was thinking they'd be closer to relegation than the top teams. Like, I didn't expect them to get the better of Laois. Kerry have looked very strong as well in the last couple of years. And obviously then beating Offaly in the final, you know. So fair play to Carlow. You got to give them credit. Martin Kavanagh scoring 1-8. Paddy Boland with 1-4. Chris Nolan with 4 points. John Nolan with 3 points as well. You know, a game that ebbed and flowed and could have went either way going down the home stretch, in fairness. In fairness to Offaly, like, Owen Cahill, good performance, 8 points. Killian Coyley with 6. David McNally with 5 points. Charlie Mitchell with a goal and a point as well. And for Offaly, look, they'll go into the Joe McDonagh Cup. I mean, the problem is you've got Westmeath coming down now, and that's going to be the big problem for Offaly. And imagine Laois will get their act together a bit more next season as well. So it will be tough for Offaly to get out of the Joe McDonagh next season. And maybe this was a bit of a missed opportunity from an Offaly perspective. And it's certainly one that the faithful county will look back at with disappointment. But fair play to Carlow. What a result for them. They'll be in the Leinster Championship next year. They'll have games against the likes of Kilkenny and Galway and Wexford to look forward to. So there we go. Like, it's going to be interesting to see how they get on. Will they beat Dublin? I'm not too sure that they will. But with Dublin, you never quite know what you're going to get with them at the best of times. So yeah, great result for Carlow. And Carlow rising 2.0. Here we go. So I'll just share my screen so we can remind ourselves of how the tables have finished. Their head around robin groups have finished. So Galway and Kilkenny progressed to the Leinster finals. We see there Dublin in third with 6 points. Wexford in fourth with 4 points in there. What's mad, like, if Dublin had a loss to Galway and Wexford had a beaten Westmeath, you know, results that easily could have happened. Wexford could have got out of there, but yeah, just a mental season, in fairness. And Westmeath relegated despite getting that win. But you look at that negative score difference, minus 80. You know, and that's, you know, they had a lot of heavy beatings when you actually look through some of the results here, which, in fairness, it didn't matter in the end, because if they had beaten Antrim, they would have got out of it. But still an interesting perspective nonetheless. And as you'll see there, Clare and Limerick progressed to the Munster final. Limerick just with 2 wins from 4 matches, just a +2 score difference. Hasn't been perfect for Limerick, but as we said, Tipperary completely blew it against Waterford. So they will go into the preliminary round qualifier. Have a look down there. The final on the 11th of June. Here in mixed report to where the game's going to be. Páirc Uí Chaoimh look to be the front runner. Some people are saying now it might be in the Gaelic grounds. It'd be interesting to see where it is. Hopefully Páirc Uí Chaoimh gets it, because I think that would be a great occasion. I actually wouldn't mind going to that game, actually, in fairness. Although it would be an absolute monster of a game to get tickets for. And obviously the Leinster final, which will be on the 11th of June as well in Croke Park. And imagine that will be a double header of someone, not in the same stadium, but on RTE or GA Go or whatever. And if we have a look down here, we will see preliminary rounds: Carlow versus Dublin, Offaly versus Tipperary, both on the 17th of June. The Carlow game will be at Netwatch Cullen Park, I believe, because Carlow play at home. They might refix that for a neutral stadium, but I'm not entirely sure. And Offaly will play Tipperary in Tullamore. A bit of a history between Offaly and Tipperary down the years as well. So very, very much excited for that, in fairness. So yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap this up here in terms of player of the week and moment of the week. Moment of the week, probably Wexford beating Kilkenny, because I just never expected it. And player of the week, we'll give the double salvo to Wexford. I think Limo McGovern was fantastic, wasn't he? 2 goals and a point. What a performance from him. What a day for Wexford. So yeah, there we go. That is the Hurling review show. As I said before, my internet is an absolute pile of crap at the moment. So that's the reason why we're doing the show by myself. Bit of a change and everything else. We might do more shows, as a single Pringle. Why not? But yeah, let me know your thoughts, your opinions on the games down below. Will be a matchday vlog of the Dublin Roscommon game out a little bit later as well. So make sure to stay tuned for that. Plenty more previews, reviews, and everything else coming soon. Might go to the Dublin Kilkenny game this weekend. I don't know. A Dublin Kildare game. I keep thinking, obviously, because it's in Kilkenny. I don't know yet. We'll see. But anyway, we'll go ahead and wrap this up here. My name's Aaron.